responds directly to the issue himself.
No NDC government official has been cited for bribery.
We sent people out there to talk to the district assembly, and we got Vanguard involved, and most of them had disappeared.
Tonight, what do the Airbus and missing excavators scandals have in common? You guessed right. Corruption and the politician. So tonight we ask, why is a Ghanaian politician corrupt? We connect Ghana and beyond to discuss. We connect after the break.
What kind of phone is this? Hey, Joe, it's the coloring to have a radio. Chance not for you. Uber upgrade. Shasuna dial *120*1#. Nabeka MTN will level probo. If we and your copy, every busumi in a year, would your Kosuna use with MTN number? No, do more now. We need 20,000 iPro 5S phones to move up. Cafe door, Bob, come up, test it. Now, for Chama Monica, I bet now. I said, Ubecha new ringtone. So, Osaka with iPro 5S phone. MTN will level probo. New year, new phone, new ringtone. We are good together. We're there for you everywhere you go.
Mr. Barr has big dreams for his business, Barr & Co. Limited, and his family, making them a reality man to long drives and queues. He's lost precious time struggling to pay his suppliers in China, Turkey, India, and other parts of the world. With the First National Bank global payment via our online banking enterprise, he now pays for all that in the convenience of his home or office, giving him time to focus on family and growing his business. Use our online banking enterprise to access Forex when you need it. It takes a bank that does more to help your family. So who's helping yours? First National Bank. How can we help you?
We give you nothing but the best. We stay above the rest. More quality, more affordability. Kingdom Boost and Stationery. Everybody's going to the one and only shop. Where customer satisfaction is a guarantee. Kingdom Boost and Stationery.
Oh yes, with our 30 days credit facility with no interest charge, free delivery services, and our free consultation on setting up your office, Kingdom Books and Stationery is unmatched in our delivery of quality and affordable office essentials, equipment, and furniture.
Experience world-class customer service in all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Takoradi.
Call us on 0302-764-101
or visit our website at www.kingdomgh.com.
Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials and stationery. Terms and conditions apply.
We know it's important to create a productive and supportive working environment by investing in your employees' health. With a leading international track record, Apex Health Insurance is regulated and licensed by the National Health Insurance Authority to provide medical insurance services to institutional clients, families, and individuals. Apex Student Package and International Medical Solutions are all here to cushion you. Visit Apex Health Insurance Office at Zion House, Boundary Road, Shiashi, or call
0501-683-914
or 0232-000-015. In Kumasi, we are located opposite Prempeh College, Sofo Line, and in Takrady, Apex Health, your preferred health insurer.
Joy 99.7 FM.
And you are live on, of course, Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Evans Mensah, and this is Ghana Connect. Two stories have dominated the headlines this week. First is the Airbus bribery scandal that dominated the first part of the week.
The second is the missing Galamsey excavators, which is currently being investigated by the police. Question: what do these two stories have in common? You guessed right. Corruption and the politician. This week, it has been talking, key things we've all been talking about. We're going to be sampling a few of the views that we've heard already on this particular subject. About it. Wherever you are tonight, you can definitely get in touch with us on this particular show. Remember, the WhatsApp line is 0244 340437. That's the number you want to reach us on. We'll be glad to hear your subject on Ghana Connect. I have guests in the studio who are to join and have the co-chair for the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Atik Mohammed is a politician himself. He agrees to join us here on the show. With us is Theophilus Saki. Susi is Susi, right? Yes, he's a graduate student himself. He has a he will share a few thoughts. Ras Mubaraki is an 2443. Share your thoughts. I want to quickly go on to my colleagues in the studio with a question. Manas, I want to start with you. I asked the question, why is the Ghanaian politician corrupt? There is an assumption there that we first need to deal with. The assumption in the question is that they are indeed corrupt. First, do you agree with that assumption?
That politicians are corrupt?
Yes.
I disagree.
Okay.
My point of disagreement is I don't think there are particular kinds of human beings that we can say are politicians. Those who are in parliament today are from all other professions. And in our own profession, currently we have Al-Hassan Suhini, who was a journalist, Radio Gold. ABF Husseini, a journalist, Daily Graphic. Our own Kojo Ponkroma is now into politics, or is in government. He's in parliament. So my point is that if you're talking about corruption, then it is corrupt journalists, corrupt lawyers, corrupt accountants, corrupt teachers, and some even corrupt religious people to take decisions for us. And when they meet, they are not able to do away with corruption. So I find it difficult to just look at a group of people and say, okay, these are politicians. In my work as an investigative journalist, if I am to choose the most corrupt people in this country, I'll choose the business people. Yes.
Okay, but this conversation is about the politician. But you say it's the other professions.
Yes, we'll get it wrong.
Okay.
If we want to focus on a politician.
Okay, I mean, I know. I mean, last year we had the conversation about why Ghanaians corrupt. It was a broad one, right? Yes. But on the back of what we've seen this week, right, with the Airbus scandal, but also right? Two specific, I guess, stories. In the back of that, that's what you're asking the question about. Is it that? That's why I want to address the underlying assumption there first. Is it because if you look, what is common there is people in power who are politicians who are accusing themselves of being corrupt. In fact, I want to play
intermediary 5
make the deal happen. We are
I picked up a new wife, and I'm quite excited.
I am excited for you. I saw the pictures and I envy you, actually.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much indeed.
Nice one. I'm grateful that you could join us. Atik, why are you smiling?
Oh, it's a good thing indeed. and let me join you in congratulating my brother. It's a good thing to have a wife and to even have another. Some are still struggling to have one. So indeed, it's a feat, and I congratulate you.
You sound like you're planning to follow suit.
We are here to discuss corruption.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's come to that then. Let's come. So where do you stand on the assumption that question is based on?
I think it's a wrong assumption, and the reason why people hold that assumption is simply because politicians, for the most part, because of reasons of political capital, would want to stigmatize one another as being corrupt and so on. So, and once you begin to state something about your colleagues over a period, people begin to think it's a statement of fact.
Okay.
And I think that is why it's become a problem. It's become pervasive that politicians are corrupt. But there is no such thing as a particular profession being corrupt. It's about individuals being corrupt. And like I said, when you look at the enterprise of corruption, or when you go to the corruption market, the participants in that market are not just only politicians. And Manasseh mentioned businessmen. Indeed, they are actually the lead agents in that market.
Supply side.
In fact, they are the ones. On the supply side, they are the ones leading. So politicians merely demand. When it comes to the market, it is the businessmen who do the supply, and the politicians are on the demand side, and they are in the minority. A lot of the time, it is the suppliers who are in the majority. So for me to stigmatize the profession of politics, if indeed it can be qualified as if it can be characterized as a profession as being corrupt, for me is unacceptable. Even though I concede that there are some individuals in that profession who survive on corruption, and so it is fair to say that some politicians are corrupt.
Okay.
But to generalize and say that all politicians are corrupt, or the enterprise of politics is a corrupt enterprise, for me, I think it's unacceptable.
So that is agreeing with what's in the Manasseh quickly, and I'll go to.
Yes, I just want to give an example of a certain minister of state who I'm told was traveling, and then he was given a clothing allowance of $300, and this minister went on the trip and came back and said, "Look, when I went, the weather was not as cold as you thought." So the clothes, the sweaters I had here was able to take care of me. So I didn't use the clothing allowance. So take back the $300. And there was pandemonium.
Wow.
The pandemonium, when they went to the bottom of it, the civil servant who did the memo actually had written $800.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. And this politician, I'm told, is Martin Amidu. So he came back. They were shocked and surprised. Why would a minister of state take money and come back and say, "Look, I didn't use it, take it back"? So this is a politician, and we have a civil servant in there. So there are some politicians are corrupt, but this is just one example. We also know PC Apiofori, who was honest and then vocal about some of the
what
things
happened to
against.
him? Wasn't he victimized by his colleagues?
When you want to stand against corruption, which has become a norm in our society,
you know this better than most.
Yes, if you want to stand against corruption, and as a journalist who reports on corruption, those who fight me most are journalists. Okay.
Not the politicians.
Not the politicians. Okay. No, journalists and the ordinary people.
That's a very interesting point, actually.
And sometimes some of the politicians help me in the work I do as a journalist to expose corruption.
In fact, one of the things you touched on, I'm going to come to about the people. Because some of the politicians argue that it's the people who corrupt them and not themselves. So, for example, if you're demanding school fees on a daily basis and my salary is X amount and I have to meet it because I want to win the vote, then you are actually then encouraging me to find corrupt means of meeting that demand. Let me bring in Ras. Ras, so the question was, why is a Ghanaian politician corrupt? We've seen a debate about that assumption. The assumption there is that they are, and there's varied views in the studio about that assumption. Where do you stand on that assumption yourself? I know you're a politician, but you have a propensity to be a bit more, I guess, neutral on some of these things. Share with me. Be objective. Try and be.
Thanks, Evans. I salute the studio guests. Interesting views. Let me say that it is very wrong to premise the debate on the assumption that the Ghanaian politician is corrupt. And we stand the danger, Evans, of losing our fight against corruption if we narrow in on the politician. there are a lot of people in positions of trust who are letting down the country. But having said that, I am of the view that there are indeed some politicians who want to live above their means, and for that matter, they will do things to meet certain expectations. I also think that there's been a complete collapse or a systematic failure. Systems are in place, to check some of these things. And I'll give you, Evans, I'll give you a typical example. If you look at Section 24(1) of the Yoko Act, it enjoins the executive director of Yoko or an authorized officer, to seize property if the officer has, quote, reasonable grounds to suspect that the property is the proceeds of a serious offense. I mean, one could argue that you have often seen property springing up belonging to teachers, belonging to politicians, belonging to chief directors, and the rest of it. I say systematic failure because the Yoko, for instance, is clothed with the necessary legal backing, to go after people whose wealth cannot be explained. But I also think beyond the systematic failure, that the citizenry themselves have, let the nation down. Evans, you would be honest with me. We live in communities with friends, with colleagues, and the rest of it. And we see people all of a sudden out of nowhere, building, multi-million-dollar mansions here and there, and nobody raises a question. Nobody files a complaint to Yoko and say, wait a minute, we are with this person. He's a journalist. I mean, his salary cannot meet, the kind of mansion he's putting up. He's just entered parliament. His salary is not commensurate with the kind of mansion he's put up. The citizenry ought to take that responsibility of, if you like, informing on some of these things.
Yeah, hold on to that.
The disappointment. Let me just make this
clear.
Okay.
The
disappointment of the citizenry, by and large, probably could be that we complain, but we may not see any action. And I think that brings us to a key failure in our system, which is the politicization of our institutions. So you've got the police hierarchy that is being, employed by the politicians. You've got the Yoko director and his deputies who are appointed from the very top. It becomes very difficult for the executive director of Yoko to go after some young politician or some old politician.
Yeah, I mean, hold on to that thought. Hold on to that thought for me, okay. Adam. He mentioned the thing about citizens, and I think Manasseh also touched on the people, right? We're having a conversation about politicians and corruption. Fair to say, I mean, Manasseh has hinted that the people, as in everybody else, may be a factor in this process. He suggests that. Well, I don't know whether you agree with that.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously what has happened is that the abnormal has become normal. So we have a new normal. The new normal is that the citizen believes that to get anything done, you got to either influence people or find a way of making sure that that result that you desire can be achieved by giving things out. Yeah.
But if that's the case, why are we shocked by the airbus scandal? Why are we shocked by the missing excavators? Because at least from what you're saying that's true, then we are like that ourselves.
Yes,
so why is there shock?
There's no shock. Okay, let me put it this way. Not for me though. Okay. I think we play the ostrich a lot. That's why I started by saying that they come out of us. And we don't seem to understand that we have a societal challenge that we haven't sat down to think through. And when I think about it, I tend to blame the church. I think the church hasn't done enough. So 70% of us are Christians and they instill enough values.
See, the church is actually even more corrupt.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. I'm saying that it's an issue of values. And if those values...
You blame the church.
You blame the church. I blame the church. I think that if the values we are talking about in church and 70% of the people were being instilled with these values, it would permeate everything.
So the majority of us are in church.
Oh yes.
Manasseh disagrees.
The corrupt ones are they are given titles like elders. And
my problem with blaming the church is that no society has ever successfully fought any canker through moral suasion. So if we want to tackle corruption, and then we leave people who don't do the right thing to walk free, a time will come when people, it's just like sometimes you're in traffic, then everyone else is passing to go and cross. Nobody is punishing them. So you, the one trying to follow the normal routine, you become like a fool. Airbus, they are paying $4 billion.
Yeah.
That is huge money. Their reputation globally has suffered. People have lost their jobs because they went outside and did something that is unethical. Okay, we are in this country. In 2013, September, the World Bank blacklisted a company in Ghana. And in its website, it didn't even say the name of the company in the headline. It said a Ghanaian company, and that's Zoom Lion. What happened? Nothing happened at home. A lot more scandals came out from that company in this country, and they are still walking around.
Many more still are coming.
So what I'm saying is that tomorrow, if there's anybody in Airbus who wants to do any such thing, I don't think the executive will sit down and allow this thing to happen again, because they have been punished. They have felt it.
You mean as in out in the West?
Yes.
But not Ghana here. We turn into political football.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that when we don't punish people, and in the issue of corruption, I look at three main factors. One, we have the cultural factors. We also have the institutional factors. And then you come to the enforcement. And if you look at cultural factors, they can be dealt with. I recently read a book written by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talked about the plane crashes. And the investigation realized that in certain cultures, if the pilot is not doing something right, the subordinates are not able to tell the person. He calls that the power distance index. So they realized that with time, they were getting more plane accidents from certain cultures, and their culture influenced that. So for instance, a typical Ghanaian, in times of emergency, how to even communicate. Somebody will say, get the hell out of here, we are going to crash. Then a typical Ghanaian, so he's an elderly person. So if you had done it this way, it would have been better. So that's the culture. And they tried to find a solution to all of that. If you go to Germany, if you are boarding a train, their railway system is very efficient. Within Berlin or Bonn or anywhere where I went, there was never a time somebody got in and checked. It was when I was traveling from Bonn, the long distance journey, that they check your ticket. Because there's some level of transparency, honesty there. Trust. Yeah. So they don't check randomly. I did throughout my stay.
So your point, we don't have that here because of the cultural.
So what I'm saying is that, and then yes, and then when you go to I'm coming to the last example in institutions. You go to South Africa. There, if you don't have a ticket on your card to even swipe, you won't have access to even go near the train, let alone to board. So there they know that, okay, for us, the trust level is low. If you want to operate the German system here, it won't work. So they have put measures in place. Here, we don't do that. And the final one has to do with enforcement, which I've already talked about.
Yeah.
If you don't punish wrongdoing, you are commanding it to be done.
I mean, but let me bring Atik in. Atik, do you have because you're a politician yourself, and you've addressed the general health view that all of you are the same, right? Do you have any sympathy? I mean, well, maybe I should ask somebody else because you're a politician yourself. When you hear that, does it make you angry?
It does, actually, and the reason is that politics is not necessarily a terrible enterprise. It's just an opportunity to serve your republic or serve whichever society you find yourself in.
But that's the ideal. That's not true necessarily in Ghana, is it?
No, I'm coming. You see, the politics as a construct, it's not a bad thing. It's when you introduce partisanship that you begin to have all kinds of problems. But you see, you need to understand the very nature of the partisan politics that is that is being done in this country. Before you win power, and it would come back to the question of what is the role of the people in promoting this subculture of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
You see, before you win political power, elsewhere, it's on the superiority of the message you present.
Yeah.
What you tell the people you're going to do, and they should be actionable, they should be measurable. But in this country, if you are realistic, if you are stating or mentioning promises that are doable, you become the weakest, you become the most... In fact, they tend to think you are the unrealistic one. So you must say the things that cannot be done. You must say the things that sound highfalutin. Those are the things that people tend to believe. So you get the politicians saying all kinds of things. And when push comes to shove, he's required to deliver. For example, you want to become an MP and you say you want to construct roads, knowing truly well that this goes way beyond your remit. Now, you win and you are looking... And there's this thing about always thinking about the next election. So you win, and in 2 years, you are thinking about how do I survive the next election. When people begin to make demands on you in respect of the promises you made, you know you don't have the power to do so. But constructing a road involves the use of resources, which resources you have not. So what do? You would have to resort to other things. Probably
that's where you start getting corrupt. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You promise people you were going to send all of them to universities for free.
But whose fault is it?
It's the people, because when you tell them the things that you can do, they won't listen to you. You understand the point? And probably, I think it's a two-way kind of journey. Yeah. Probably we corrupted the people into thinking that the only way you can find a good politician is to find that who tells you the things he can't do. So over time, they've accepted that this is what ought to be. The misnomer becomes the normal. That when you lie, you are the good one. When you tell the truth, oh, this guy is weak. Oh, and they tend to think that when you tell the truth, you are the one who wants to come and spend their money without wishing to do anything. So you want to tell them, oh, what I can do is to make sure laws are made properly to defend you. And so, this man comes. The money that is meant for us, he would want to package.
But that's a powerful point you've made. That he says politicians may be some of them may be corrupt because of the people.
Absolutely.
Adam, do you agree? I'll come to you, on this. But Adam, I saw the look on your face when he said that.
Just quickly, there's this point I wanted to make. And I initially spoke about the very nature of the partisan politics we do in this country. Look, patronage is, in my view, the leading force that gets politicians corrupt.
Okay.
And it's because of the nature of our partisan politics. Look, we run, in this country, look, you have somebody running to become an MP, and the kinds of campaigns he's running, so expensive. There are benefactors somewhere. And look, nobody, of course, businessmen are always there to maximize profits, to exploit as much as they can. If a businessman supports your campaign, it is not because he loves or believes in your policies, no, or whatever message you have.
Well, he might get years down the line.
Absolutely. So a year after, he comes demanding his pound of flesh. Where are you going to get that from? Except for you to be corrupt. So you mess things around. You what shall I say? Like you bend rules.
So again, not the politician's fault. It's the fault of the business.
No, I'm not saying so.
Okay.
But if the politician decided to say, look, I want to run a clean campaign, I want to limit my expenditure and so on,
and not take from business people.
Look,
he'll lose the elections.
Well, there are people who have won elections without having to spend so much.
Okay. Well,
and I strongly believe that if your message is superior and you really are very clear in what you want to do. And let me just cite an example. The first time one of our former MPs, the MP for Busa South, Honorable Alasan Azong, the first time he won, if I tell you the resources that he had at his disposal, laughable, against somebody who was incumbent and had so much money. But he won not because he was able to spend them more, but because his message was clear. But after he became an MP, he became a culprit.
Because?
He started promising and doing things that ran counter to his earlier style.
Because he thought the people were expecting him to say
exactly.
That.
So he won his second term. But the next one...
quickly on that point about... the politicians are corrupt because of the people.
No, I won't go down that way. I'll stick to values. I think he helped me. Manasseh helped me a lot when he talked about Martin Amido, he talked about PC Ofori. Even the example he just gave. before he got elected, it was a set of values that made him give a certain clean message. Then he got into office. Those values were not core. Otherwise, they shouldn't have changed after he got into office, and then began to promise things he cannot deliver. So if you have a Martin Amidu who will bring back $300, why? It is his core values: hard work, integrity, honesty. If you had a PC Ofori who was fighting everybody and was willing to just not sell his soul,
I know their kind is rare.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. That we need.
But we have moderates who are not too corrupt.
Don't even say extreme. I'm saying that's the way to go. We need to think more. Those cultures, whether Asian or elsewhere, or Bonn. I've been in Bonn also. Yes, I didn't need a ticket to go round. The truth of the matter is, there is something right from childhood that they instill in them, that they have that confidence that will be there. What are we doing about that?
That's where the church comes in.
So
that's where I agree with that the church comes in. So it's not so much about moral tuition, but the upbringing.
The upbringing.
I mean, let's if you look at the corruption perception index, consistently there are countries that seem to do very well. You're talking about Finland, you're talking about New Zealand, you're talking about Denmark. I don't think that politicians there are angels. I think that there are structures that facilitate that kind of behavior.
Okay.
And so I agree with the argument that it's a matter of values, but I think that's also very important to recognize that if people who have the best of values are in an environment that is not enabling them or facilitating, the use of those good values, they could actually fall.
The system corrupts them.
Exactly. It's very, very important. And my argument has been on this premise that, first of all, it is very wrong to say politicians are corrupt, because my argument on this premise is that anybody can be a politician and anybody can be corrupt. As a result of that, politicians can be corrupt. And there's a statement from Thomas Jefferson. He says, the functionaries of every government have propensities to command at will the liberty and property of their constituents. There is no safe deposit for these but with the people themselves. But it can't be safe with the people without information. And so it's important that we have free press and every man should be able to read, and that's how things will be said. I'm paraphrasing. But, that gives you an impression of how important information is in that kind of environment. And if you look at New Zealand, if you look at Finland and the rest, where education levels are high, literacy is very high also, you realize that you're dealing with a different crop of people who may have different demands. The political literature indicates clearly that even for people who want to become members of parliament, there are certain demands that constituents make from those people. People require, constituency representation. There are those who care about what you say in parliament, but they exist in a very small minority. There are people who care about what you do for the constituency. But then the chunk of the people care about what you do for them personally. So if you go to some constituency and they're saying the MP didn't do anything, they're actually saying he didn't pay school fees, he didn't give us money, he didn't do this and that, he didn't satisfy the whims and caprices of party executives. So that's also a very huge challenge. I'm wondering how somebody with the best of values will be able to thrive in such a system. He wants to win the election and all he has is his values, but then people, the kingmakers, are demanding money from him. That actually creates a very huge problem. So I think that environment...
So all what you're saying leads me to the question. So what you're just backing the point that Atika has actually made, that we create the environment for the politician to be corrupt, and yet when they are corrupt, we almost appear short. And I think that's your point about us being ostriches. So where's the point here? So we create an environment, they get corrupt, then we act surprised, then we say corruption has become the biggest factor in either you lose an election or win. Elections are always run on who is the most corrupt, etc. But the people, as I'm hearing, are really at the heart of this. You mentioned, I'll come to that, the people eventually don't even punish corruption enough. I'll come to that as a topic, but let me go back to Ras, because it's on the line. Ras, let me ask you a personal, possibly a hard question, but depending on how you answer it, it might be simple. You're on, Ras.
Yes. All right.
Have you ever been corrupt as a member of parliament?
Absolutely not. And I say so proudly, because of my own values, my own upbringing. And I think in looking at how we can get ourselves off this mess about corruption, especially in our politics, the political parties will have to take a decision on how they run their affairs. I mean, during elections, we see offensive use of resources to get elected. You ask your question, where is the money coming from? And that is what has fueled the perception that indeed all politicians are corrupt.
An interesting thing, just to add to what you just said, the interesting thing is that the electorate reward that offensive use of resources, don't they? And you are a victim of that. I'm sure you've made that point before to me on live television, that somebody came in with bags of resources and got elected.
Absolutely, and so we've got to deal with it. The politicians would have to, or the political parties would have to carve out measures that does not make, the bribing of delegates, if you like, something that is easily doable. I mean, in 2015, when I ran, you had 15,000 delegates when I first ran for parliament. It is highly impossible to bribe 15,000 delegates. But when you narrow it down to an exclusive handful of people who decide whether or not somebody can be a politician or a president, then you're running into problems. And I think that the politicians would have to make a firm commitment in ensuring that their electoral colleges are expanded enough to limit, reduce, incidences of corruption. But I also think we need to focus on the soft side of development, because more often the talk is about roads, it's about healthcare facilities and the rest of it. But we have a problem of corruption, issues with procurement and the rest of it. You would know, Evans, and indeed your studio guests and listeners, that there's hardly anyone in the country who can say that Ghanaians are really patriotic. We are not. I mean, it is the lack of patriotism that is fueling corruption. Because if you know that you are taking part in cutting corners at the detriment of the poor farmer in Kumbungu or in Savulgu or in whichever part of the country, you're actually letting them down. You would not do that. And it has to start from the schools. It has to start from our respective homes, the churches, the mosques. They have a huge role to play, all of us. And we need to get a lot of our institutions away from political influence so that the police can, actually do their work without fear of recriminations, as seen often in our country. I get worried, and I've attempted even to have us have a bill that would require for parties, that would require for politicians running for public office to actually say exactly where the money they are running for public office is coming from. And it is a reason why many, fine young people like yourself and many others who are listening are finding it difficult to venture into politics.
Well,
because it's hard to raise the resources.
Well, I can tell you that I don't have any interest in going to politics. Absolutely.
No, but you see, again.
Because honestly, I just can't stand the tag. Because I know I have friends. All of us do have friends who are non-politicians. We worked with, whatever it is. Immediately go. There's perception. Even for me, I perceive them as such, and I know it's wrong, but you just cannot help it. And I just cannot stand that somebody looks at me and think I'm like everybody else.
But you see, the very act of our inaction, fuels the problem. We know there's a problem. We call politicians corrupt. We say, you sure they are stealing our taxes, they are doing and those of us who claim that, we are above reproach, we wouldn't steal the people's taxes, are sitting on the fence and expect that things would be the way we want them to be.
And another thing, Ras, forgive me, I need to come back to your colleagues in the studio. Another thing about the point you just made is also some people are, and let's come back to the point that's made in the studio already, who may want to go to politics with values, are afraid that they have the values, but if they go into it, the system will corrupt them. And so they might not go at all. Because I've seen people, they genuinely believe they could do right. They enter into the game, politics, and the system makes it impossible for you to become upright. Manasseh?
I don't think it's about the system. And in this case, I would want to go back to what Evans Mensah said at the beginning. If your values are strong enough, the system cannot corrupt you.
Are you sure, Manasseh?
You are a human being. You are a human being. And, our society in general, I've said this somewhere, that the 2015, the flood disaster, my room got flooded. Very terrible. When people were counting the cost, I posted some of the pictures on Facebook. Then my wife's Then we're about to get married. A very good friend called her and said, tell your husband that looking at his stature, where he lives does not befit his status. Okay, so society has expectations of you. So if people have all these expectations, and then you know, as a journalist, your salary cannot give you a house in Trasaco Valley, but you are doing stories that people are prepared to give you houses in Trasaco Valley
to shut you up.
Yes, are you going to say that, okay, well, I come from a poor background and there's so much pressure on me, society is expecting so much even where I live? No, if you have values and you are not prepared to suffer for those values, you don't have them. So for me, they talk about the fact that, well, the system will corrupt you and all of that. There are people who are in politics, but I have a lot of respect for them. I don't think all politicians are corrupt, even though a good number of them are.
Do you have any sympathy for the politicians when they are accused of being corrupt at all? Any sympathy for them?
Some of them, but a majority of them I don't.
You don't,
because when Atik was talking, if I know that I'll get into politics and deliver, I can deliver A, B, C, and I go to promise what I cannot deliver in the first place, I'll be lying to the people, and I'm creating a platform to go in there and steal. So when I do that and say, well, it was the people, the pressure, whatever, if you know that you tell the truth and be voted out, be honest to yourself. Let them vote you out. Go and find something else to do.
Some say you are being unrealistic, actually.
No, that is it.
You disagree.
No, it's very possible to say things that are doable within the period in which you would be in office.
Yes,
and still have people
and expect that people will vote for you.
And vote for you.
But in the overwhelming majority of cases, you will not get elected.
You know that. Thing is that as you promise the realistic ones, your opponent will be telling them that heaven is
and he gets elected.
Yes, but you know what happens? Yeah, the same people will do an evaluation and later say that no, this guy was yes. And
after the fact.
Yes, it doesn't matter. You see, there's short-term losses. There are short-term losses, but there are medium to long-term gains in holding on to values. I like medium.
Okay, good.
Yes, and if your intention is actually to serve the people, then it should not be an issue that I lost. Therefore, the world has come to an end. That should not be the case. Then obviously you are not genuinely
so your point is you can serve them in a different capacity.
Absolutely.
But Theophilus.
Well, I just want to bring our minds to something. The Westminster Foundation for Democracy's report says between 2012 and 2016, politicians, people who are aspiring to be MPs, spent $86,000 to be elected.
Where?
That's not. I mean, across constituencies in Ghana.
Okay.
They spent $86,000. I mean, if you're trying to translate that into cedis, you may have like 430,000.
And it's getting worse by the day. Ras will tell you.
But that is why we need to have a conversation around this. If we believe in integrity and honesty, we as people should be saying, guys, this thing you're doing, it doesn't.
But the people, and I make the point when Ras touched on, the people reward those who spend, as Ras put it, offensively.
Yes, but
right.
But the people, if you are spend offensively, let me tell you, there's somebody whose story I heard.
No, sorry.
He wants to go for MP, and even the primaries. If he doesn't have 1.2 million, he cannot push through. That's just the primaries. Then after the primaries, he's going to now campaign to the entire constituency. If you put everything he's going to spend, and then the 4 years of his salaries as an MP,
it will not come to that.
It will not even, he can break even.
So the point is,
so if you are moving ahead and you know all of this, and you are trying to borrow money, do everything, then how are you going to get your money?
No, but it's not about
to steal.
Let me hear. Sorry, you on the ground. Let me hear.
I mean, it means that we need to do more than just talk about values.
Absolutely.
It means that there should be stringent laws on campaign financing. There should be stringent laws on information.
I mean,
people declaring assets and all that. Because I mean, if you just leave it to values, it won't be enough. Then we need to have structures. And I disagree with the statement that if you do have the values, you should be that's
the system can't corrupt you.
I think that the system can.
Let me hear from you.
You see,
I don't even think that Manasseh was saying that the system can't corrupt you. I think what he was saying is that there are people who can stand up to the system. I think that all of us here agree that, and because if you look at behavior change, we talk about the carrot and stick. You have the side where there must be the enforcement of laws. You must also have the part which it builds you up to have that character. So I don't think anybody is disputing the fact that the systems are also important. But I think fundamentally, the majority of Ghanaians don't yet see that the abnormal has become normal, and we are just continuing business as usual. And we need that kind of intervention where we say that, look, this is wrong. Let's have a discussion around this and put in place those checks and balances that say that campaign financing will no longer exist.
But I know that this will never happen, right?
No, why
I have a very pessimistic view
let's
that what you're suggesting is so utopian. It will never happen.
Why?
It's ideal. In Ghana here.
Why not?
In Ghana here.
Haven't we done a lot of advocacy that when things have changed?
Oh, but why
think that he's not able to start this discussion now?
And
because I think in this year,
no,
honestly speaking, you see,
forgive me. I want to hear from my team.
For me,
that's why we're having this conversation, by the way. But although I really have skeptical.
Part of the reason why corruption has survived and continues to survive, and on this occasion, let me be specific to just political corruption. Part of the reason why it has survived is largely because of the systemic challenges we have. They've mentioned issues to do with lower, regulation enforcement and what have you. I remember in 2008, came up with a suggestion about changing the campaign expenditure regime that we have in this country. There is no limit to how much you can spend on campaigns. So it leaves the room, and like we have all admitted, it is, for the most part, the highest spender who gets elected.
Yeah.
So it allows a lot of people to step up and say, okay, we want to finance your campaign, but these are the conditions on the table. Knowing that defeat awaits you if you refuse their financing, what you do is you say, okay, I have a set of values. I don't really like to be influenced by some of these things, but I have an election to win. So what you do is you are torn between winning an election and sticking to your values. The former is what eventually is going to win the day.
Which is to take the money.
You take the money, you win the election. But like I said,
the man is speaking reality. Then.
Oh no, that's the truth. But the truth.
You guys were talking.
Why do you
want to win the election?
I'm getting it wrong.
This is interesting.
Forgive me, gentlemen.
Don't confuse me.
Forgive me, gentlemen.
You cannot tell me you are just interested in serving the people, and then you start by getting to debt, and you are telling me how are you going to serve the people?
Let him make his final point. I have to go to the
interesting thing. You have a situation whereby you become a candidate subsequent to party primaries. So, in as much as the general view is that he's coming to serve the people, but you are doing that through a certain vehicle. The vehicle does not take defeat for an answer. So if they know
the vehicles in the party,
I'm talking about the party, will not allow you to lose the election simply because you want to stick to some values.
Yeah.
What they will tell you is if you want some set of values you want to stick to, my friend, go and become a pastor or something else.
So the party is now corrupting you as
well.
But
that's a part of the whole part of the thing.
The party is also corrupting.
Forgive me, gentlemen.
I need to admit to that.
No, but that is the reality. That is the reality.
No, it's the truth. The challenges are
I think, please forgive me. I need to connect to the US shortly. I want to quickly bring in Solomon. Hello, Solomon.
Hello.
Hi, Solomon. Thank you for connecting. You are in. Oh, I think I lost him. Do I have Ras Mubarak on the line?
Yes.
Okay, Ras, give me a second. We'll just pick up that one that we can speak to. Yes, Ras.
Let me give you a final one.
Please do.
Asset declaration. I'm of the view that it has, outlived its usefulness. What's the point in declaring one's assets that is under lock and key? Nobody knows about it. The Auditor General even doesn't know about it. It's sealed. So people come into office, they amass whatever wealth, and year in, year out, every 4 years, they declare their assets. Sometimes they even pad it up with a view to, acquiring resources whilst in office. So I think we have to take a second look at it. If we want to deal with it as a measure of reducing incidences of corruption, either it is out there in the public, for journalists, for the media, for constituents to verify. When Ras Mubarak came into office as a member of parliament, he had X amount of assets and liabilities. He's living with so and so and so. Open governance. Everybody can see what is in there. But I also think we need a bill on unexplained wealth that would deal comprehensively with not just politicians, but with all manner of characters within our society who, out of nowhere, are putting up buildings and properties from left, right, and center. It has to be dealt with, and dealt with comprehensively.
Ras, I'm grateful that you join us and enjoy your new wife. We are wait to see you back in Ghana. We are all very happy for you. I think why?
No, I didn't say anything.
But it's a good wish. Ras.
Yes, Evans.
Isn't that a good wish?
I'm encouraging my brother Atik, who's also a Muslim. If there's ever the need, to add another one, to actually go ahead. But Evans, probably we need another conversation on this whole polygamy issue.
Definitely. Did you say polygamy? Okay.
Polygamy is not a bad idea. Actually, indeed, I'm inspired by the major step my brother has taken, and I'll take a cue from that.
Oh, that's a good one. This is what you are telling us. NS.
Kobe says, hi Evans, Manasseh is right. Look, we have changed political parties, but what has not changed is the civil servant. Let's think about it. This one from Josephine Kumazi says, I think we should change the constitution so that the opposition MPs deal with the financial side of procurement. This one says, Evans, who creates the environment for the politician to be corrupt? Who runs the system? Is it not the same politician? How then is it my fault that the politician is corrupt? Another one here says, enjoying the discussion, the average politician is corrupt. They will bend their rules to benefit themselves or their family and friends. I get angry at the presence we show instead of bringing people to book. This one also says, Evans, I totally disagree with you with your assumption that the Ghanaian politician is corrupt. In fact, Ghanaians are corrupt. Journalists, the police, teachers, public officers, and ordinary Ghanaians. And one says, Evans, I'm surprised at the diplomacy and philosophy your panel is attaching to their responses to your question on the Ghanaian politician being corrupt. They are corrupt. Why should they pass a law that to have their declared assets hidden from us? Why do they become rich overnight? It's simply because they are corrupt. And this from Kofi Intema.
Okay, thank you very much. And so a quick 10 seconds. What is the solution? You say values and trend values.
I think that expanding the people who understand what core values are, such that those values also get into enforcement. Let's have systems that will enforce it. So we want to make sure that.
And then that's so idealistic. The values. Okay, let's see the values. Why got it, Manasseh?
I'm praying that one day Ghana will get a leader with conscience, a leader with integrity, a leader who would not fight corruption with his lips.
So you're saying we haven't had that yet?
No, but not in my lifetime.
But who do you blame? Isn't the people who elect these people?
No, we have a problem now.
Because I'm sure there have been people like that who have run for elections but have not.
We have a problem now, and we need leadership to
drive that. Okay, quickly.
I think we need education for the people, the general populace. I think that we also need to make sure we have a legal regime that enhances information. Journalists should have that information, and I commend people like Manasseh who do investigative journalism. We need to have that kind of information out there. I think all these things, as well as that legal regime I'm talking about, can deal with corruption.
I have always made the point that winning the fight against corruption is at 3 levels: the leadership level, the institutional, and the civil level. I think at the civil level, there seems to be an increase in civil vigilance, which is good. That's where Manasseh and all of us come in. At the institutional level, we have some institutions that seem to be doing some work related to anti-corruption and all of that. But the level that has failed and continues to fail all of us is the leadership level. And I cannot but agree with Manasseh.
Okay.
We need that leader, and we are yet to find that leader.
Okay. Are the people ready to elect a leader like that who may be campaigning without resources, without the power of influencers, etc.? Are the people ready to elect that kind of person?
We are, but we have had people scamming this republic with this,
that they are like that, but they are not. Okay.
In an election year.
Yeah.
So we have people scamming us with that message.
And then when they get into power, they entertain. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll have this conversation again. Enjoy your evening. Up next is First Take.